After a good night's sleep and a full recovery, I had to take stock of things. Of course, we'd finally cleared the dungeon and defeating both Poltergeist and the Ceaseless Void, which, in my opinion, were monumental achievements. The defeat of these bosses also signaled something else. The Abyss now had another layer to it that was now unlocked. I wasn't sure what that would be, but I knew I'd be finding out soon. Before that though, I decided it was time to focus on another upgrade. We did of course find the Ghoulish Gouger for a weapon, so I figured it was time to focus on some new armor. And this Blood Flare armor should do the trick nicely, especially with its defense boost, increased stealth, and a fun little ability for weakened enemies to drop hearts when struck. So, free healing. I don't think you can ever go wrong with any form of lifesteal. So with all my gear in order, I headed straight for the Abyss to see what had changed. I assumed that there might be some new enemies or a new biome or I don't know, just something. But much to my chagrin, as I dove deeper into the Abyss, it was all the same. Or so I thought. While the enemies weren't any different, nor was the biome, the exception to things remaining pretty much the status quo was that the enemies at the bottom were now actually dropping items. Meaning that the Reaper Sharks and the Colossus Squids that were giving me such a headache before were now actually potentially worth defeating. But things are never that easy here, and as I dove deeper into the Abyss, the Eidolon Worm spawned. Unfortunately for him, other than being quite tanky, it didn't really pose much of a threat. So I'm pretty happy to report back that I'd say I'm getting kinda strong at this point. Unless you talk to this Reaper Shark who apparently still thought otherwise. Anyways, after I respawned, I decided to head back, except now we had this acid rain. And apparently that allows this mini-boss, the Nuclear Terror, to spawn. And he really wasn't much of a challenge, and I ended up defeating him multiple times over without really breaking much of a sweat. So once again, just as my confidence was growing, this game decided to throw me yet another curveball. This time in the form of this. Yeah, this tornado apparently has a fun little mechanic where it spawns this guy. And no, your eyes are not deceiving you. That is indeed a more decrepit looking Duke Fishron. Allow me to introduce you to the old Duke Fishron. But don't let his old weary appearance fool you, because this old fella has a couple of tricks up his sleeve. And after a short few minutes, the inevitable happened. Now, I was definitely caught a little off guard at him spawning, and normally I would try to exact my revenge, but there were two things stopping me. First, I didn't even know how to actually spawn the old Duke, other than that I needed an acid rain event for a chance that he might spawn. I wasn't really exactly sure. Second, the community was insistent that there was no need to fight him, and I should instead focus my efforts on the Rune of Chaos, which apparently can spawn various bosses depending on which biome you're in. So that's news. And up next, I was apparently being peer pressured to head to space to take on a boss I'd never seen before, the Stormweaver. So up I went, activated the Rune of Chaos, and summoned Stormweaver, which apparently is just a bigger, more armored worm in space? I mean, he's not even that fast. But you know what? I think it's best not to get too overconfident. This is just phase 1 after all. He might have a few tricks up his sleeve like old Duke. But as the fight progressed, I slowly began to realize that I might be a bit too strong for this fight, and that perhaps I was supposed to take this boss on a little bit earlier. Either way, despite his best efforts, Stormweaver was no match for me, and after a few short minutes, I put him out of his misery. After a pretty underwhelming fight, I really didn't have much in terms of expectations for loot here, and rightfully so. As I opened my treasure bag, there wasn't much of interest, except for these armored shells. These little guys opened up the option for weapons and armor, sure, but most interesting was this, the Cosmic Worm. This is the summoning item for the Devourer of Gods, or DOG for short. This was a boss I'd never taken on, but it was one that I'd heard of before, and it meant only one thing. I was starting to approach the end of this crazy journey we'd embarked on. But as luck would have it, turns out you don't just get to summon the Devourer just like that. Oh no, my friend. Our friend, the Rune of Chaos, is actually the key to all of this. It allows the spawning of several bosses depending on the biome, Each of these bosses then provides you with one of the required materials to make the cosmic worm. So the Ceaseless Void, who we've already defeated in the dungeon, gives us the dark plasma. Of course, the Stormweaver, who we've just defeated, gives us the armored shells, and that means we're missing just one more piece of this infernal puzzle, the Twisting Nether. And that can only be acquired from one place, from the last boss that was required to be defeated to be able to get our hands on the cosmic worm, Signus, the envoy of the Devourer. So, next stop, Hell, where I would make my first attempt at defeating yet another unknown enemy. So down to the underworld I went, found a nice open clearing, and got to work. And honestly, I didn't really know what to expect here, but as the fight carried on, I got that same feeling I had with Stormweaver. This was kinda easy. And sure enough, without taking much damage at all, the final blows landed and Signus was one and done. The Twisted Nether was now mine, and not just that, but Signus was also kind enough to drop this Cosmic Kunai and this Spectral Veil, two rogue items that actually had some real potential to end up in my rotation of items. But I couldn't spend all day looking at these items and all the cool stuff they did. More pressing matters awaited. I made the Cosmic Worm and looked forward to my next challenger. Surely this would be a little bit more of a worthwhile fight. So I headed up to my arena, said one little prayer, and decided to test my mettle. Now, my immediate first impressions are that this is literally just Stormweaver all over again, albeit a much larger version, and sure, he's a little bit faster and has a few more abilities, but color me unimpressed. But slowly, as the fight dragged on, it felt like he was getting a little bit faster, launching a few more projectiles, and even had this little minion guy helping him. Oh, and he goes invisible, sorta. I was not a fan of this move. Unfortunately, as he got faster and faster, he ended up whittling away my health, and then this happened. I mean, he just came towards me in a straight line, and I didn't even react for some reason, so yeah, my bad. So I felt that was a pretty avoidable death, so I gave this another shot, only to be vaporized by the 10 million projectiles he was shooting. And then there was this other time where he just took a bite out of me mid-air. Turns out DOG was no cakewalk, and he was kinda kicking my butt, and he killed me at least another dozen plus times or so. Despite my shortcomings, I was making some progress. I was now getting him to stage 2 consistently, where he only got bigger, faster, and shot even more projectiles. This was not going to be easy. After a long time, I couldn't even count how many times I died. Progress seemed to creep forward slowly until eventually I was finding my way to phase 3 semi-consistently. But this bullet hell was also causing me headaches. And at this point, progress had all but halted. Sure, I was getting deeper into phase 3, but I kept making little mistakes that were costing me. Simply moving too early or too late was proving deadly, and phase 3 was also proving to be a near insurmountable obstacle. It's not to say I was ready to give up, but I was running out of steam and I wasn't seeing a lot of options. But maybe as the saying goes, the 83rd time is the charm. So I decided to summon him again and hope to see some progress. But then, after a consistent phase 1 and a really strong phase 2, I once again found myself in phase 3, and I realized I was on the dream run. And deep into phase 3, I managed to avoid multiple sets of projectiles, keep some consistent damage, and avoid the Devourer's last-ditch charge. And finally, the Devourer slowly began to fall apart, and victory was mine at last. In his defeat, DOG was kind enough to drop these Cosmolite bars, which I turned into a new shiny Cosmic Anvil, which I'm pretty sure will come in handy. But for now, after overcoming what was undoubtedly the toughest challenge I'd faced so far, there was only one thing left to do: celebrate.